I always got this feeling that he believed I was just off the beam taking some like lazy approach to life.
You were born one of five, the oldest. Your mom, Shirley, looking back, how do you view her?
My mom, she was a character. She was always unhappy with being in the sort of female role prescribed by society. You know, she always wanted to do something else, be an artist. She joined the Army once, just I think to shake up my dad and, you know, shake up the household. Came home in a uniform with a gun, with a rifle. You know, I thought that was pretty cool.
Raced stock cars too,
She
right?
raced stock cars. That, you know, that was before I was born. But yeah, no, she was kind of fiery. She was the one that I think taught me to value art and to value science. And my dad was, he was a workaholic and he was very disciplinarian, and he didn't care about the arts at all. And my mom was a painter, and we used to go to art shows and go to galleries, and she'd just take me there on a day trip to draw, to sketch. So there was definitely a sense that the arts were important growing up, you know, and so I'm sure that fed into my whole worldview.
Was there a feeling that she missed out on achieving her dreams?
Oh, absolutely. She was always pushing against the sort of the house, stay-at-home housewife model. I mean, she was good at it, and she had 5 kids, and that was the standard division of labor in those days. My dad had a degree as an electrical engineer, so he was the earner. But, you know, she went to nursing school for a while, but he always sort of put her back in her lane, you know, and it was really just societal expectation. I can't really blame him. He was of a generation where that was normal. And, you know, she never was really able to achieve any kind of escape velocity, you know, for any length of time. But I could always feel that sort of yearning to do so.
Your dad, Philip, you said before you felt like he really didn't know how to deal with you or understand who you were.
I was kind of an alien creature, I think, from his perspective.
Why?
Well, he just had a very kind of rigid worldview, and I didn't fit that worldview. You know, I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to do all this crazy stuff that didn't fit his perspective. You know, I had to go out. I had to earn a living and do all those things. And so I always got this feeling that he believed I was just off the beam taking some like lazy approach to life.
Really?
Yeah, he never saw me at work. He never saw what I did. He never saw me working, you know, 20 hours a day for 4 weeks straight on a low budget, you know, guerrilla filmmaking kind of project. How hard we worked kind of put his so-called work to shame in terms of the amount of energy, mental energy, all that sort of thing. But he never got to see that.
He did kind of, from what I understand, recognize, you know, that this directing thing was going to work out for you after you won Oscars. But
I think about the time I bought him a house was the time that he had to allow that maybe it had some value.
Did you guys ever have that kind of heart-to-heart conversation where he kind of recognized you making it?
I don't think he ever saw the need, and I kind of just outgrew the need for it. I think, although I am talking about it now, we all have issues that we want dealt with, and I think life is about making peace with not getting the closure that one would have wanted at the time one needed it. It's just, you just have to sort of wrap it in white light and let it go.
What do you think you would have wanted?
Well, you know, it's like by the time I realized I wanted it, I wouldn't have wanted it. Does that make sense?
Sure.
It's like, no, I don't want it now. You had to do it back then.
Right.
You know, so then it's a question of, can you actually forgive somebody? And of course you can, because they're just the result of all of their programming, their father's expectations and so on. It just ripples down through the generations. I just don't, I'm sort of at a point right now that where unless somebody does something truly evil, you really can't blame them. They're just the product of their own genetics and their own upbringing and their own schooling and all of those things. And many of those things are not choices people make, but just things that happen to them.
And frankly, even if you didn't want that at the time, how he was towards you played a role in who you've become today and the success that
Yeah, I
you've
think
had.
so.
Yeah.
Look, I think there's a couple of things that I would say about this while we're on this subject. One is I couldn't have written Avatar with A Way of Water and Fire and Ash with the father-son relationships that you see in those two films if I hadn't been on both sides of that equation. Not just the side of being, the angsty teenager, misunderstood and unseen, but also to be on the other side of it as a father of teens. They were teens when I wrote it. I shouldn't say I couldn't have written it. I might have been able to, but I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have been interested in writing it. I think as an artist, as a writer, as a filmmaker, you have to you're constantly processing your own things, whether they're direct things in your life, emotional, psychological, or whether they're your free-floating anxiety about the world at large, observations, in my case about, potential for nuclear war, the rise of AI, all of these things. So there are the greater anxieties of the world, and then there are the lesser but more personal anxieties and psychological factors. And it's cathartic to write about this stuff.
The second Avatar film, you did an interview with the Hollywood Reporter where you said, "I'm going to work out a lot of my stuff artistically that I've gone through as a parent of 5 kids. The overarching idea is the family is the fortress. It's our greatest weakness and our greatest strength. I thought I can write the hell out of this. I know what it is to be the asshole dad."
Well, my kids were prompt to tell me exactly when I was, exceeding my parental authority. That's pretty hysterical. So you think you're this director that people respect, and they'll do what you ask them to do, and then you come home and then you've got your kids.
They had kind of a heart-to-heart with you after the first Avatar, right?
Well, I think we have it in good perspective. They see glimpses of me in some of the characters, and they see glimpses of themselves in some of the kid characters, but they also take it all with a giant grain of salt because they know, first of all, when I was writing that, I didn't understand them. That's a given, of course, as a teenager. My dad does not understand me, who I really am. And there were probably a lot of things I didn't understand that it's taken time. And they also know that it's a snapshot of a moment that's not relevant to them now, to our relationship now, So they think it's all kind of funny. They actually really enjoy the films, So it's not like there's any kind of trauma or resentment around that. And they accept, because they're all artistic, they accept the fact that you've got to write what you know and what you're experiencing.